Imagine it's 1770. The air is cold, it tastes of wood smoke and damp earth. A soldier, not a postman, stands outside a farmhouse. He's not delivering a letter. He holds an oiled paper stencil and a stiff, hog bristle brush. With 3 quick taps, a number appears over the door, stark and red against the old limewash. The number 138. Inside, the family watches. This isn't for directions. This isn't for a friend. A clerk in a nearby office wets a goose quill, and beside their family name, he scratches down that same number, 138. That simple number just connected this home, this family, to a vast imperial machine. That painted number is the ancestor of your shipping address, your zip code, your IP address. But it was born for a much darker purpose. This is the story of how your address was invented, and how that invention learned to control you. So, why then? Why 1770 in the Habsburg lands, across what is now Austria, Czechia, and parts of Eastern Europe? The answer is simple: the empire needed 2 things. Money and bodies. Empress Maria Theresa was a reformer, but reforms cost money, and wars cost even more. The old systems of counting people and property were a chaotic mess. You had parish registers, which were pretty good for births and deaths. You had feudal land records. But there was no single, unified system to know exactly who lived where. It meant taxes were inconsistent, and finding men to conscript into the army was a nightmare of guesswork. You couldn't just send a letter saying report for duty. You had to send soldiers door to door, asking around, wasting time. The solution was called the Hausnummerierung, the house numbering. Under an imperial rescript, every single dwelling was to be given a conscription's number. A conscription number. The name tells you everything. Its primary function wasn't to help you get mail. It was to make you legible to the state. Findable. Countable. Think about the machinery of this. Edicts are posted on church doors. Local clerks are trained. Then, soldiers or adjutants march through villages with their stencils and pots of red, linseed oil paint. A number is painted outside, and its identical twin is recorded in a ledger inside, beside the name of the head of household, their occupation, and most importantly, a count of military-aged males living under that roof. This is the hinge. The absolute turning point. For the first time on a mass scale, a home is no longer just a place. It's a coordinate. A data point. That red 138 transforms a farmhouse into a line in a database the Crown can search. It's the birth of address-indexed population management. The idea that a government can sit in a capital city hundreds of miles away, look at a ledger, and know exactly which door to knock on to find a soldier, a taxpayer, or a dissident. A seemingly innocent system of organization has, at its core, the logic of control. And that idea? It was about to go global. Once a tool is invented, people find new uses for it. And the house number was a powerful tool. Let's jump to Paris, just a few decades later. Before Napoleon and then Baron Haussmann, getting a letter in Paris was a lottery. An address might be something like, Monsieur Dubois, near the butcher with the green sign, 2 streets past the Swan Inn. It was a city of clues, not coordinates. Chaos for the postal service was one thing. But for a modernizing state, it was intolerable. How do you police a city you can't navigate? How do you fight fires when every second is lost to a confusing street name? In 1805, Paris mandates a numbering system. But it was under Haussmann's massive renovation of the city in the mid-19th century that the address became an icon. They introduced those classic blue enamel plaques with crisp white numerals. These weren't just painted on. They were porcelain fused to steel, fired in a kiln to be durable, weather-resistant, and, critically, highly visible. Picture it, walking down a new, wide boulevard at night, the gaslight glinting off those plaques like small, orderly moons. They weren't just for looks. They screamed order. Rationality. Modernity. The beauty of the plaque hid its function. Your doorway was now a tab in a perfectly organized, city-sized filing cabinet. And what about London? The problem there wasn't a lack of numbers, it was a chaos of them. A single street could have 3 different number 10s. Some streets changed names halfway down the block. The Metropolis Management Act of 1855 was a declaration of war on this confusion. It mandated a single, logical system. And it gave us something we now take completely for granted, odd numbers on one side of the street, even numbers on the other. It sounds so simple, but it was a revolution in urban legibility. Suddenly, the postman, the constable, the fire brigade, they could predict where a house would be. They could move faster. The city itself became more efficient, more manageable. The humble house number wasn't just a label anymore, it was becoming the operating system for the modern city. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, American cities were being built on the logic of the grid. Philadelphia, New York, they were designed for numbering from the start. But as cities grew, even their systems broke down. So they underwent massive renumberings. Chicago's 1909 ordinance was one of the most ambitious, resetting the entire city's coordinate plane so that an address like 800 North Michigan Avenue told you precisely that you were 8 blocks north of the city's 0 point. The address itself contained navigational data. But the biggest upgrade was yet to come. In 1963, the US Post Office introduced the zip code. This was a game changer. The zip code taught the mail how to think like a machine. For the first time, an address wasn't just for a human to read. It contained coded information that a machine could sort. And with the later invention of Zip +4, the system sliced the country into smaller and smaller pieces, until your specific block, even a single building, was a unique data point that could be processed by an optical scanner's unblinking stare. The human eye was being replaced by the machine's gaze. And with that efficiency, the potential for both service and control grew exponentially. Because the same number that delivered your birthday card also delivered your draft notice. The census taker used your address to enumerate your household. The tax collector used it to assess your property. Your utility company, your school district, every layer of civic life was now keyed to that number on your door. Governance and findability became two sides of the same coin. But this is where our investigation takes a darker turn. Because if a system can find you to provide a service, it can also find you to enforce control, or to exclude you. In the 1930s, the US government created the Homeowners Loan Corporation, or HOLC. They created maps of major cities to assess mortgage risk. And they colored them by neighborhood. Green was best. Blue was still desirable. Yellow was definitely declining. And red was hazardous. This is the origin of redlining. Getting a loan in a redlined area became nearly impossible. And what determined those colors? Overwhelmingly, the racial and ethnic composition of a neighborhood. Your address, your simple street number, was now a proxy for your race. It became a gate, locking entire communities out of the opportunity to build wealth, cementing decades of systemic inequality. The number on the door was no longer neutral. It was a weapon. Across the ocean, in Nazi-occupied Europe, the same logic was put to even more horrific use. Meticulous municipal population registers, where every citizen had to register their address, turned entire neighborhoods into ready-made arrest lists. The Gestapo didn't need to investigate. They just needed the ledger. The address, once a symbol of civic order, became a tool of unimaginable persecution. Findability and governability are the same invention. And when the state's intention turns malevolent, the address becomes the tip of the spear. Of course, it's not all bad. The system can also save you. When you dial 911, the enhanced 911 system, E911, instantly provides the operator with your address. Your coordinate becomes your lifeline. In that moment of crisis, you want to be found. Help is a coordinate, or it is a deadly delay. Care and coercion, riding the exact same rails. The same system that can redline a neighborhood can also dispatch an ambulance to save a life within it. Which brings us to today. That number on your door feels quaint, almost obsolete. But its logic, its ghost, is everywhere. It has simply shape-shifted. Your house number has new cousins. Your IP address, which fences your device into a geographic location. The ad ID on your phone, which trails you through apps. The GPS blue dot that follows your every step. Police can now issue geofencing warrants, drawing a digital box around the scene of a crime and demanding data on every single device that entered it. They're not looking for a name. They're looking for a coordinate. Think about your daily life. The shipping address you type into a website for a package is the same data point a fraud filter uses to decide if your purchase is legitimate. Proof of address on a utility bill is the document that opens a bank account, and the same requirement that can close a border to a refugee who has no such papers. Insurance premiums, bail algorithms, food delivery zones, your kids' access to a good school, all of it hinges on those few digits in a line that began with a soldier and a stencil. Even in places where streets have no names, the system is arriving. Digital addressing schemes, like plus codes, are pinning informal lives in slums and remote villages to a formal map. On the one hand, this is a revolution. It means access to deliveries, to banking, to emergency services. On the other, it means the state and the market can now reach down alleys they once ignored, to collect taxes, to enforce laws, to gather data. The bargain is being offered all over again: we will make you findable. In return, you become governable. So we're left with this invisible contract we sign every day. Every time we ask for convenience, deliver here, verify me, remember this location, we add another drop of ink to our own file. We are the co-authors of the map that names, sorts, and tracks us. And somewhere, under layers of fresh plaster and modern paint on an old European farmhouse, the ghost of a red 138 still bleeds through. It outlived the clerk, it outlived the empire, and its logic has outlived them all. The question was never whether you are on the map. We all are now. The real question is, who holds the legend? And what are they doing with it? Which brings us to a final thought experiment. If your physical street address, your IP address, and your phone's GPS dot could each be given one rule, one use they must always refuse, and one use they must always allow, what mercy would you grant them? What would you forbid them from doing, and what would you demand they always permit? Let me know your answer in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to see what you come up with. And if you believe that understanding the hidden systems that run our world is crucial, then consider subscribing to the channel. We pull on threads like this every single day. Until the next investigation, check out the video on your screen now. It's another deep dive into a system you use every day, with a history you won't believe. Thanks for watching.